In the summer of 1985, 13 people were murdered across Los Angeles and the San Francisco Bay Area. The killer had no consistent victim profile. He attacked anyone, and for over a year, police had nothing. He was breaking into homes while families slept, leaving satanic symbols on walls, forcing survivors to swear allegiance to the devil, and vanishing before sunrise. No neighborhood was safe, no lock was enough, and for over a year, an entire city lived in fear of a man nobody could identify. Richard Munoz Ramirez was born on February 29, 1960, in El Paso, Texas. His path toward violence began early. At 13 years old, he watched his older cousin Miguel, a Vietnam War veteran, shoot and kill his own wife during an argument. He was standing in the room when it happened. How that same cousin had already been feeding him a worldview built around violence, dominance, and the absence of consequences. Another cousin introduced him to Satanism. Richard took all of it in and never let any of it go. He dropped out of high school, moved to Los Angeles, and by the mid-1980s, Satanism was not just a belief. It was his entire identity. He wore pentagram jewelry openly, referenced the devil in casual conversation, used cocaine and LSD heavily, and spent his nights listening to AC/DC, particularly their album Night Prowler, a title that would later feel disturbingly fitting. Those who crossed his path described him as unsettling in a way they could not always explain. And in the spring of 1984, he began to kill. His first known murder was that of 79-year-old Jenny Vinco, found stabbed to death in her Glassell Park apartment on June 28, 1984. Her home had been burglarized. The case went cold. Nobody connected it to what was coming. The real terror began in 1985. Between March and August of that year, Ramirez launched a campaign of violence across the greater Los Angeles area and later the San Francisco Bay Area that was unlike anything investigators had encountered before. He had no consistent victim profile. He attacked men, women, children, couples, and the elderly. He broke into homes through unlocked windows and doors in the early hours of the morning. He used guns, knives, and whatever he could find inside the homes he entered. He drew pentagrams on walls. He forced survivors to swear allegiance to Satan before leaving. He stole jewelry and cash to fund himself between attacks. Allman left behind a city paralyzed by fear. In March 1985, Vincent and Maxine Zazzara were murdered in their Whittier home. In May 1985, William Doy was shot in his Monterey Park home. His wife Lily survived. That same month, Mabel Bell and Florence Lang, two elderly women sharing a home in Monrovia, were both attacked. Mabel died, Florence survived. In July 1985, Patty Elaine Higgins, Mary Louise Cannon, and Joyce Lucille Nelson were all murdered within days of each other. Max and Layla Kneeding were murdered in their Glendale home. Chaineron Covenant was shot and killed in his Sun Valley home, while his wife Somkid was assaulted and forced at knife point to swear allegiance to Satan. She survived, and she would later become one of the most important witnesses the prosecution had. Through the panic that swept Los Angeles during those months was unlike anything the city had experienced in a generation. Hardware stores could not keep deadbolts in stock. Locksmiths were booked solid for weeks. Gun sales surged across the region. People who had lived in the same neighborhoods for decades began sleeping with weapons beside their beds. The LAPD was under extraordinary pressure from the public, from the media, and from city leadership to identify and stop the Night Stalker before the next attack came. But Ramirez kept moving. The attacks kept coming, and the city kept bleeding. Then came August 1985 and the attack that would end everything. Ramirez broke into a home in Mission Viejo and shot a man named Bill Carnes in the head. Bill survived. His fiancée Inez Erickson was also attacked, but survived. And as Ramirez fled the scene, Inez did something remarkable. In the immediate aftermath of one of the worst moments of her life, she focused enough to memorize the license plate of the car Ramirez was driving as he left. That license plate led investigators to a stolen vehicle. That vehicle yielded a fingerprint. And And that fingerprint, run through California's criminal database, produced a name: Richard Ramirez. His photograph was released to the media on August 30th, 1985. Within hours, the city of Los Angeles found him before police did. Ramirez was spotted by residents in the East Los Angeles neighborhood of Hubbard Street while attempting to steal a car. A group of neighborhood residents chased him on foot, caught him, and physically held him down until police arrived. Soon he was beaten by the crowd in the street before officers took him into custody. When police finally reached him, he reportedly said, "Thank God you came. They would have killed me." What followed was one of the most chaotic, theatrical, and deeply strange trials in California legal history. Proceedings began in 1988 and did not conclude until 1989, more than 3 years after his arrest. And from the moment Ramirez walked into that courtroom, he made clear that he intended to treat the entire process as a stage. He arrived at hearings with his long, dark hair hanging loose, dressed deliberately to cultivate his image. He flashed a pentagram drawn on his palm at press photographers as he entered the building. He made satanic declarations from the dock, staring down witnesses and jurors with an intensity that unnerved everyone in the room. He showed absolutely no remorse at any point during the proceedings. Not when evidence was presented, not when survivors testified about what he had done to them, and not when the families of his victims sat feet away from him in that courtroom. He fed off the attention. He appeared to enjoy every moment of it. The circus surrounding the trial extended well beyond the courtroom itself. Women from across the country mailed him love letters by the hundreds. A devoted group of female admirers attended the trial daily, dressed in black, competing openly for his attention from the public gallery. It was a phenomenon that horrified investigators, prosecutors, and the families of victims in equal measure. The disruptions inside the courtroom were equally extraordinary. One juror, a woman named Phyllis Singletary, was removed from the panel. After it emerged, she had developed romantic feelings for Ramirez. Another juror, Robert Lee, was murdered during the trial, an unrelated crime, but one that added yet another layer of disorder to proceedings that were already unprecedented. At one point, Ramirez told assembled reporters, "I am beyond your experience. I am beyond good and evil." It was a line delivered with complete sincerity by a man who genuinely believed every word of it. Several survivors took the stand during the trial, and their testimony was devastating. Somkid Kovananth, whose husband China Rong had been killed in the July 1985 attack, described in precise and composed detail what Ramirez had done inside her home that night. The attack, the assault, and being forced at knife point to swear allegiance to Satan while her husband lay dying. And she identified Ramirez in court without hesitation. Her composure on the stand in the face of everything she had endured was one of the most powerful moments of the entire trial. Inez Erickson, whose quick thinking in noting that license plate had directly triggered the chain of events leading to Ramirez's identification and arrest, also testified. Her account of the Mission Viejo attack and the clarity of mind she had shown in its immediate aftermath underlined just how critical the role of survivors had been in bringing Ramirez to justice. On September 20th, 1989, after one of the longest deliberations in California murder trial history, the jury returned their verdict. Richard Ramirez was found guilty on all counts: 13 murders, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual offenses, and 14 burglaries. He was sentenced to death in the gas chamber on 19 counts. When Judge Tynan read the sentence, Ramirez looked at the court and delivered his final performance. "Big deal. Death always went with the territory. See you in Disneyland." He was led out of the courtroom and taken directly to death row at San Quentin State Prison. He spent 24 years on death row. In 1996, he married Doreen Leoy, a magazine editor who had written to him hundreds of times during his years in custody and who publicly maintained his innocence for years. The marriage effectively ended when DNA evidence linked Ramirez to additional crimes, and Doreen distanced herself from him completely. He continued to give occasional interviews from death row, maintained his satanic persona, Iron became one of the most recognized figures in American true crime history, something that brought absolutely no comfort to the families of the people he had killed. Richard Ramirez never faced the gas chamber. On June 7, 2013, he died of complications from B-cell lymphoma at Marin General Hospital in Green Bay, California. He was 53 years old. He left no final statement. He expressed no remorse. He simply died in a hospital bed after 24 years on death row, having never once acknowledged the full weight of what he had done to the 13 people he murdered and the countless others he left permanently scarred. 13 people lost their lives. Dozens more were injured and traumatized in ways that never fully healed. An entire city spent the summer of 1985 afraid to close their eyes at night. Heine called himself a servant of Satan and performed that identity in courtrooms, in front of cameras, and in letters from prison for decades. But beneath the performance was a man who made choices, deliberate, calculating, and irreversible choices that destroyed real families and real lives. Inez Eriksson memorizing a license plate in the worst moment of her life. Somkid Kovananth sitting in that courtroom and telling the truth about what happened to her family. The residents of East Los Angeles who ran down a street and caught a killer with their own hands. They are the real story of the Night Stalker case.